Okay, so my role as the more senior member of this duo is to go over the old-fashioned way to do things, the plan and docker perspective. So you, by the age of, you can hear in my voice that this is an older way to do this. So this is about maintenance. Maintenance is what the general title is of dealing with legacy code. So what's the difference between these things? And one question is, well, how much do the plan and documents systems spend on maintenance versus development? Sounds like the big thing is development. Is this different in Agile? And Agile developers maintain code. You remember when we talked about testing that the plan and document had separate quality assurance testers. So what happens when you get to maintenance? And plan and document has the word document in it. So what's maintenance documentation look like? Okay, so let's try and answer some of these questions. So first of all, plan and document spends only 1/3 of the costs on development. 2/3 go on to maintenance. And that's why you get to use, if you pay $100,000 for software, you have to pay $10,000 a year for maintenance. That's a pretty typical number. So they get to charge you to keep the thing working 10% per year, and people don't complain about that. It's a highly profitable industry. So yeah, the development team is not the maintenance team. At plan and document organizations, they have a maintenance manager, maintenance software engineers. Typically, the maintenance jobs are less prestigious than the development jobs, but it's a separate group of people who take on that responsibility. But the maintenance manager is pretty much like the development manager. He or she is the boss. They do everything. They do the estimates so that if we're going to make an upgrade of the system, they're supposed to figure out, come up with a schedule, how much it's going to cost, evaluate and overcome risks, just like the plan and just like the development manager. Recruits the maintenance team, evaluates performance, which sets salaries, and documents the maintenance plan. And there's even an IEEE standard on how to do the documentation just for the maintenance part. And this person gets blamed if the improvements in the evolution of the software that's out there working, if it takes a long time, this person's responsible for them. So the differences here is, so there's 3 main differences between the development and maintenance thing. First of all, the development people are starting off, if it's a new program, with fresh code. But for maintenance, there's working code in the field that they can't break. And they're working, for the development thing, they've got a specification that they're meeting and that maybe they talked to the customer originally, but then they deal with the specification. That's not the case here with maintenance. They're collaborating with the customer, and the customer says, I would like these changes to this working code. And in the next release, I'd like you to make them. So they're working with the customer, and they're responding to change. Customers send what are called change requests. In fact, they fill out change request forms. And that these change request forms are tracked with a ticket tracking system so that you can see what happens to all those requests. So who gets, okay, they get these requests, then they just implement them, right? Nope, not that simple. At the plan and document systems, there's something called the plan and a change control board. So the board decides whether you're going to implement these requests or not. It's not up to the manager. So the manager, for the maintenance manager, estimates what the cost and time of each of these changes would be. There'll be a lot of changes requested. Then it brings in the quality assurance team, and the quality assurance team figures out the cost of testing and changing the existing tests. And then they bring in the documentation team, and the documentation says if we do this change that the customer requests, how much expensive will be documents. And finally, there's a customer relations support group that's trying to relate just how big a deal this is for the customer. Do they really care about it a lot or not? How urgent is it? Is there a way to get around this request? Now, what can happen is, well, that's kind of if you're asking new features and you can wait, but often there are urgent events, emergencies. And emergencies might be the thing crashes all the time, or there's passed a new law and you have to change it, or you found out there's a security hole and you're losing customer data and you have to fix it. Or the operating system or library gets upgraded. Or your arch rival has just brought out this cool new feature that everybody wants and they're abandoning your software for that. So you have this emergency change request that you can't ignore. So they just jump in and fix the code. Just what you're not supposed to do, right? Jump in and fix the main branch. And then the idea is after the emergency is over, you're supposed to go back and fix it up. But what can happen in software, depending on how it's built, you can have emergencies all the time. So you don't have a chance to catch up. So then what you'd hope to do is say, hey, look, we've had all these emergencies, the code's getting out of whack from the documentation. Please let us refactor this code so it's maintainable, but it's not up to you. It's up to the change control board. And the change control board say, well, gee, that's going to be a lot of money. I don't know if we want to spend it doing that. So what can happen is the code can, over time, evolve into something that's pretty hard. And so to do, and especially if you don't get a chance to refactor like Armando talked about earlier. So ideally, refactoring continuously, but maybe because of the emergencies, you don't get a chance to do that. So there is a notion of called re-engineering versus replace. So Armando said you almost never throw all the code away. There's an argument for re-engineering, and there's some tools to help you do that. So, if, like, for example, you could change the database schema, that should work. Hopefully that would work without breaking a lot of things. You could, your documentation is out of date. You could look at the code, and there are tools to do reverse engineering from the code to figure out what the code is doing to improve the documentation. We've seen the code analysis tools that, use code smells to point at bad sections of code, so you just fix that part. And there's even programming language tools. If you're in an antiquated language and you need to upgrade to a modern one, there's things that'll try and automate you do that. So what's the difference between kind of refactoring and re-engineering? This idea is that there's a bunch of tools that will help you make dramatic changes to it. But the reason that we're doing this is to put in perspective the plan and document and the Agile approaches. So what about the change requests? That's in plan and document, there's this customer fills out a change request form. There's an official document to do that. What's it like in Agile? Well, you're meeting with the customer in iteration. You agree on the 3x5 cards for this next iteration. So that's kind of the change request. Who estimates, how do you estimate how expensive it's going to be? That's up to the manager of the maintenance manager to figure out those costs. And we're just using the good old point system in Agile to do that. Who's going to decide what thing to do? Well, it's the change control board that's making that decide. In the Agile thing, this is working with the customer, right? The customer and you, the next iteration, decide what's high priority, and you decide what's being done next. And who does this, right? There's a maintenance manager. There's not one of those in the Agile or in the Scrum model. There are these separate engineers and quality assurance teams and customer support. That's just the development team over there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get those new cards ready. Which statement about plan and document maintenance is false? The cost of maintenance usually exceeds the cost of development in plan and document. The Agile equivalent to plan and document change requests is user stories. The equivalent of change request costs is points. And plan and document releases are iterations. The third one, the Agile lifestyle is similar to the plan and document maintenance lifecycle, given that it's enhancing working software, collaborating with the customer, and negotiating versus negotiating by contract, and continuously responding to change, or all the above are true.